Hey guys, thank you very much for joining me for another video. Today I'm going to be discussing the nine books that I read in August. This was actually a really good reading month for me. I think there were a few books that were kind of iffy, one or two that I didn't care for, but I think I have like 5 4-star reads in here, which is fantastic. As always, we're going to start on the bottom with my least favorite book and work my way up. First book. I feel like I've let myself down and everyone around me down. I kind of took this one hard because I had such high hopes, but there was that little voice in the back of my mind that was like, nope, it's not going to work out. You're not going to like it, because I had a similar experience with the author's other book, and that is The Starless Sea. Guys, I'm so disappointed in myself that I didn't like this. I really wanted to. If you read the description of the book, I feel like it's written for me. Like, it has everything in it that I really like to read about, but it just didn't work. So for as much as this book is about any one thing, the main character, Zachary, he discovers a book one day that has his own story written inside. There are a lot of bees and keys and underground corridors and libraries and secretive cults that either want to protect or destroy the books inside. I've got no idea. Never has a book left me feeling so much like an idiot with no clue what's just happened as this book. A lot of people really like Erin Morgenstern's writing, and a lot of times beautiful writing will be enough to save a book for me. Even if I don't like something about the plot or the characters, if the writing is beautiful, a lot of times it's like, okay, I can just finish this and enjoy that part of it. I just didn't like the writing very much in this book. It was full of similes and metaphors and descriptions, that really detailed descriptions that went on for way too long. And for as detailed as those descriptions are, typically what happens is you're able to kind of conjure in your mind something to fill the void of what this world looks like. And I just couldn't. For me, it was just, everything was kind of a blank void. I will say, I will be fair to the book and say that I did do this as an audiobook. I didn't physically read this one, so maybe that had some sort of impact on it. I don't know. This wasn't for me. I did not enjoy this one. It just kind of left me feeling confused. I didn't know when, where, what anyone was. No idea what was going on half the time. There was someone who, when I announced that this was going to be I think this was like my mystery pick book, and on that video someone said, oh, hopefully you can kind of convince me into picking this up. Haven't I done a great job of convincing you to read this book? I'm sorry. But I will say, if you are looking to read a book that's kind of a homage to storytelling, The 13th Tale, fantastic. That's like a 5-star read for me, and that's beautiful writing, descriptive but not too much, good plot, good characters. Check that one out. All right, next book on the list, we have Any Way the Wind Blows. This I thought was supposed to be the final book in a trilogy. I did recently hear that I think it's no longer a trilogy and there is going to be a 4th novel. If that's the case, I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series. I really enjoyed the first book, Carry On. It was kind of a reversal of the Chosen One trope. The magic system was really interesting. I liked it a lot. For me, it would have been better, honestly, if it was just a standalone novel. The second book was just kind of a road trip book. And in this book, nothing really happens. There's like zero action. There's a lot of talking. I don't know what's at stake. I still don't really know who the antagonist was. It seems like it was more kind of, the goal of the book was to make sure that all the main characters had romantic partners by the end. Because for me, nothing really happened in it except everyone got a boyfriend or girlfriend. I don't know. Next book on the list is a collection of short stories, and that is The Assassination of Margaret Thatcher by Hilary Mantel. This is the first Hilary Mantel book I've ever read. I do have a few of her other ones, such as Wolf Hall, on my TBR list. I believe she's won the Man Booker Prize twice, I think, for 2 of her novels. Collections of short stories are either a hit or a miss. There are some that I do remember really fondly as leaving quite an emotional impact on me. If You See Me, Don't Say Hi, What We Talk About When We Talk About Love, You Are Not a Stranger Here. Those were all like 5-star fantastic reads for me. This one was just kind of okay. She does write very factually. There's like no dressing up. It's about kind of the underbelly of normal society. Lots of like tangent thoughts, not always pleasant, but very honest. She's a talented writer, but emotionally this book just didn't really connect with me. There was one short story in here that I did really like. I think it was called The Heart Fails Without Warning. The Heart Fails Without Warning. It's about a family kind of crumbling as the daughter is struggling with anorexia and pretty much killing herself. That one was really good. I did feel emotion with that one, but a lot of the other ones, I just wasn't very interested in a lot of the characters. So next book on the list, Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I recently finished, not so long ago at all, the final book of the Caraval series because I went years between those books. It took me so long to finish that series. And I think I mentioned in that video that like I heard this was out and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll see if I end up liking this one a little bit more. I like this more than the 3rd book in that series, but less than the 1st book. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to enjoy any of Stephanie Garber's other books as much as I did Caraval, just because I was in the age group that she was specifically writing towards. And now that I'm a little bit older, some of the, specifically like the romance, just doesn't do it for me as much as it used to. In this novel, we do have some of the cast from the previous series returning, but we do have a completely new protagonist. Her name is Evangeline Fox. She is in love with this boy. One day there's news that he is planning on marrying her stepsister, I believe. She thinks he must be under some sort of a spell or a curse, so she goes to make a deal with one of the fates, Jax. She travels to a foreign kingdom. She becomes entangled with the royalty there. There's romance and betrayal, all that stuff. I think where Stephanie Garber really shines is her descriptions of the world she creates. She still, like, even though this felt like it was too young for me, I could still appreciate that aspect of it. The main character, Evangeline, I struggled with her a little bit. She doesn't seem to have many traits beyond being kind of innocent and vulnerable and hopeful and tries to be good. I do remember that the book ended on a cliffhanger, and it did leave me wanting to continue with the series, but for the life of me, I can't remember what the cliffhanger was. And I only read it like a week ago. What happened? Oh well, I'll probably read the next book though. So I'll just pick up then and see what happened. Next on the list, we have Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This is a short little novella. I can't believe I haven't read this before in school or something. This was fantastic. When I saw John Steinbeck, authors like that, I typically think like, oh boy, this is going to be either difficult to read, or it's going to be written in a kind of old stuffy fashion, or it's going to kind of drone on and on about the hills and the trees for pages and pages. That is not what this was at all. The book follows the 2 main characters of Lenny and George. George is a bit smaller, very smart though. Lenny is a big guy, very strong, but you get the impression that his mental age might not match his physical age. He's very kind of naive, childlike in a way. So George really looks out for him and takes care of him. They find jobs as farmhands, and the idea is that they just want to save up some money so they can buy their own plot of land, buy some animals, kind of live off the fruits of their own labor, peace and quiet, a place for themselves. I don't want to give too much away just because this is a novella. It is a really short read, but things happen at the farm that aren't great. There's kind of this tragic accident that happens. The ending is, whoo, it will make you tear up. The writing, though, is really good. It's so easy to read. It really keeps you captivated from page to page. Even though the book is very sad, I think it does a really good job of capturing kind of the small moments of human kindness and human hope. And it's not dark all the way through. So when you do have those moments, those sad moments, you feel it even more because it's not just like a book full of misery. There's good things in there too. Definitely makes me want to read some more Steinbeck. So maybe I will be brave and I will venture to find one of his longer books, but this is great. Next on the list, we have A Very Large Expanse of Sea. This was pitched as being a story about a Muslim girl in the US soon after the wake of 9/11. I will say the first half of the book was a bit of an uphill battle. I knew it had really good reviews, but I couldn't quite figure out why, just because it seemed to be more of a cringy YA romance than anything else. Thankfully, that did change about halfway through. The main protagonist wears a headscarf, and she has been like physically attacked by people several times because of that. People see her and have a lot of predispositions about who she is and what she believes. So she acts kind of like a cactus, and you see that there's good reason for it, but she is just so kind of desperate to protect herself around other people getting too close and letting her down. So she's very prickly to people. She doesn't really want anything to do with anyone. Around halfway through, she does begin to grow and start to challenge herself to view the world around her in a new mindset, and that was very satisfying. I feel like if she had stayed the way she was and it was completely like, you know, I'm this victim, the world is so terrible, I hate everyone, that would have been a really depressing read. But this does deal with a lot of the negative things that she's exposed to, but she does start to try to see that like not everyone is automatically against her and tries to see the good in people. And that's when I really started to see why people enjoy this book so much. The main character, she's interesting. She's really into breakdancing. She joins this like breakdancing crew and competes. It is a romance that takes place in a high school, so it makes sense that it is a very young love, but the things that this couple are put through and the way that they react to it is for the most part pretty believable. She goes very flip-floppy on some things that kind of drove me a little insane, but overall it was a really good book. Again, her internal growth really is what I think makes this book, so I did enjoy it quite a lot. Next book on the list, we have My Sister the Serial Killer. This follows two sisters, Korede and Ayula. Korede is the older sister. She's very responsible. She's a nurse, kind person, generally just, you know, good solid person. Her younger sister Ayula is very beautiful, very spoiled, kind of a social butterfly, and her boyfriends keep ending up dead because she keeps killing them. So when Korede receives certain phone calls, she kind of knows that, okay, it's time to grab the bleach and it's time to help my sister move this body. The trouble starts when Ayula sets her sights on a young doctor at the hospital that Korede works at, that she has a bit of a crush on, and Korede talks to her sister, you know, maybe don't try and date this guy because typically that doesn't work out for the man's longevity. Creates a bit of a rift between the sisters and things just get dramatic from there. This is really funny and dark, and the writing was great. It's very easy to read, easy to get into. Does a really good job of putting you in the main character's mindset. So yeah, this was great. A really short read. I don't know if this is technically considered a novella. Number 2 on the list, we have It Ends With Us. This is the first Colleen Hoover book I've ever read. I know she's got quite a few out there now. When I thought of this author, initially I was thinking murder mystery thriller, and this is way more of a love triangle than anything else. Typically, I really don't like love triangles in books, so I'm not sure why this worked for me so well, but it did. We follow the main character of Lily. Early on in the book, she meets a man named Ryle. He is, I think, a neurosurgeon, very wealthy, very attractive, really good chemistry between the two of them. They kind of hit it off. This new relationship is interspersed with moments from her childhood, primarily dealing with her father abusing her mother and her meeting and then losing the first love of her life, Atlas. What this novel focuses on primarily is the subject of abuse. When we talk about abuse, we like to label it kind of very black and white. You know, abuse is wrong, which is correct, and you'd never do this to someone you loved, and the woman needs to leave. Colleen Hoover does a really good job showing the gray areas, showing how kind of it can have really humble beginnings and how it escalates really quickly and how you get stuck. The strength it takes to leave those sorts of relationships, and also, on the other hand, the strength it takes to remain in them. A lot of times in the book, I would get really frustrated with Lily, and I would just like almost, it's like when you're watching a movie and you're like, don't go down the stairs, there's a murderer there. I would just be like, leave him now, like get out of that relationship. And I get so frustrated with her. And the author does a good job of reminding us that it's not the victims that we need to get annoyed at, it's the perpetrators. In the kind of closing chapter of the book, the author does talk about how her mom actually did deal with abuse and how she did see things like this happen in her childhood, and kind of wanted to pay homage to the inner strength that her mother had in that relationship. So it does feel very personal. It is very raw. It's very touching. I think overall, it does just a really good job showing, again, some of the complexities in abusive relationships. So it's also, there's a second book in the series, which I did not know, which I will read. We've reached the number 1 pick. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did. I kind of randomly selected it from my shelf, and that is Why Fish Don't Exist. This follows David Starr Jordan, who was actually a real person. He lived in the late 1800s, and it goes between him and the author Lulu Miller. She recently had a very bad breakup. Her life just isn't where she wants it to be, and she goes out looking for inspiration. She finds the account of a man who kept all of his scientific collections in glass jars. There was an earthquake in California, and everything was destroyed. But instead of giving up and saying, you know, this is years of my life done, I'm over this, he started picking through the rubble and the glass and began to label what was salvageable and kind of start fresh. The author does imagine what his childhood and schooling must have been like. Ever since he was young, David was obsessed with kind of ordering the natural world, the stars and fish and stones, all that stuff. As he went through school, that wasn't really seen as important, but the older he gets, as he graduates college, a lot of belief system change, kind of Darwinism comes out, and people are starting to pay more attention to this. He gains popularity and power and actually becomes the first president of Stanford. The first half is really her admiration of this man and kind of imagining just the passion that he held for the world around him. And then in the second half, we really get to see how, hello, what you doing? Hello, young sir. We really get to see how he actually wasn't that great of a person. He might have helped cover up the murder of a woman. He was involved with eugenics. He just destroyed some people's career. And it's a very complicated relationship between like the connection you feel with a person who's dead, who was not a perfect person, but you find so much about them to admire. It's a really good mix of history and memoir and science. You learn a lot of stuff, but it's really the kind of human journey that keeps you going through this. I don't know why, I just found it really touching, so it was fantastic. I liked it. And those are all the books I read, guys. Whew. Thank you guys for joining me for this video. I hope to see you next time, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.